I need to write this down. Maybe someone will believe me. Maybe someone can help. Or at least, if I disappear, there'll be a record of what happened to me. My name is Michael Brennan. I'm 42 years old, and until a few months ago, I was living a pretty normal life in Charleston, West Virginia. I had a decent job in IT at a big tech company, a small apartment, and a cat named Pixel. Nothing exciting, but it was stable. Then I stumbled across some files I shouldn't have seen. I won't bore you with the details, but let's just say the company was doing some seriously shady stuff with user data. The kind of thing that could ruin lives if it got out. I couldn't just let it slide, you know? So I did what I thought was right. I blew the whistle. Big mistake. Within a week, I was fired. Not just fired, blacklisted. Suddenly, no tech company in the state would touch me. My savings dwindled, and I started falling behind on rent. I was desperate, scanning job boards for anything that would pay the bills. That's when I saw the ad. Night receptionist needed. Whispering Pines Motel, Fayetteville, WV. $50 per hour, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. No experience necessary. Immediate start. It seemed too good to be true, but I was in no position to be picky. I called the number, and a gruff voice told me to come in that night for an interview. No resume needed. The drive to Fayetteville took about an hour. The sun was setting as I pulled up to Whispering Pines Motel. It was one of those old-school L-shaped motels you see in movies. 2 stories of rooms arranged around a central parking lot. The neon sign flickered weakly, half the letters burnt out. I parked and headed to the office. A bell jingled as I pushed open the door. The place smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap air freshener. Behind the desk sat an old man, his face a maze of wrinkles. He didn't look up from his newspaper. "Help you?" he grunted. Yeah. I'm Michael Brennan. I called about the night receptionist job." He folded his paper and fixed me with a piercing stare. "You sure you want it?" I blinked, thrown off. Yes? That's why I'm here." He nodded slowly. "All right then. You start tonight, 11 to 7, $50 an hour, cash. Any questions?" I had about 1,000,000 questions, but I was so surprised I could only stammer, "Don't you want to interview me?" He shrugged. "You showed up. That's all the interview I need. Job ain't for everyone." The pay was too good to pass up. "Okay, great. What do I need to do?" "Check in any guests, keep an eye on things, and follow the rules." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and held it out to me. "Memorize these. Don't write them down. Don't tell anyone about them. Break a rule, you're done. Got it?" I took the paper, my hand trembling slightly. "Got it. Good. See you at 11. I left in a daze, clutching the paper. Once I was in my car, I unfolded it and read. Rules for night shift at Whispering Pines Motel. Rule 1. At 11:15 p.m., turn off the neon sign. Turn it back on at 6:45 a.m., not a minute earlier or later. Rule 2. If you hear knocking from inside the ice machine, ignore it. Do not open the ice machine between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Rule 3. Room 237 is always vacant. If anyone asks about it, tell them it's under renovation. If you see lights on in room 237, do not investigate. Rule 4. The phone in the office will ring at 3:33 a.m. every night. Answer it, but do not speak. Listen for exactly 66 seconds, then hang up. Rule 5. If a guest checks in and gives the name John Smith, give them the key to room 113, regardless of availability. Do not look at their face. Rule 6. The vending machine in the lobby will sometimes dispense items that are not food or drinks. If this happens, Dispose of the item immediately. Do not touch it with your bare hands. Rule 7. At 5:55 a.m., lock yourself in the supply closet for exactly 5 minutes. Do not come out early no matter what you hear. I stared at the list, my mind reeling. This had to be some kind of joke, right? A hazing ritual for new employees? But something in the old man's eyes told me he was deadly serious. I glanced at my watch. 10:45 p.m. I had 15 minutes to decide if I was really going to go through with this. Pixel's face flashed in my mind. The past due notices piling up on my kitchen counter. The sneers of my former co-workers as I was escorted out of the building. I took a deep breath and got out of the car. The old man was gone when I entered the office at 11 p.m. sharp. In his place was a younger guy, maybe in his 30s, with dark circles under his eyes. "You the new guy?" he asked, already standing up and gathering his things. I nodded. "Yeah, I'm Michael." He grunted, not bothering to introduce himself. "Good luck," he muttered as he brushed past me. "Wait," I called after him. "Any advice?" He paused at the door, not turning around. "Yeah, follow the rules." And then he was gone. I settled into the chair behind the desk, my heart pounding. The rules were burned into my brain. I checked my watch obsessively as 11:15 approached. At exactly 11:15, I went outside and flipped the switch on the neon sign. The parking lot was plunged into darkness, save for a few dim lamps near the room doors. As my eyes adjusted, I could have sworn I saw something move in the shadows near room 237. But when I looked directly at it, there was nothing there. Back in the office, I tried to distract myself by exploring. There wasn't much to see. A small bathroom, a supply closet, and a back room with a cot and a mini fridge. I assumed this was for the night receptionist to use on breaks, though the thought of sleeping here made my skin crawl. At 1:30 a.m., a car pulled into the lot. My first customers. It was a couple, mid-20s, giggling and hanging on each other, probably looking for a place to hook up away from roommates or parents. "Welcome to Whispering Pines," I said, plastering on a smile. "How can I help you?" The guy leaned on the counter, grinning. "Yeah, we need a room for the night. Something with a view, you know?" He winked exaggeratedly. I forced a chuckle. "Sure thing. I've got a room on the second floor that should work." I grabbed a key from the pegboard behind me. "Room 215. It'll be $65 for the night." As I was processing their payment, the girl frowned, looking around. "This place is kind of creepy, babe. Maybe we should go somewhere else." My breath caught in my throat. "Please don't leave," I thought desperately. "I need this job." The guy laughed. "Ah, come on. It's got character. Besides, I'm sure it looks better in the daylight. Right, man?" He looked at me expectantly. "Oh, absolutely," I lied smoothly. "The view of the mountains in the morning is breathtaking. You'll love it." That seemed to satisfy them, and they headed off to their room. I let out a sigh of relief. One normal interaction down. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. I spoke too soon. At 2:17 a.m., I heard it. A soft thumping sound coming from the lobby. I froze, my blood turning to ice. The ice machine. It was gentle at first, like someone tapping politely. Then it grew louder, more insistent. I gripped the arms of my chair, my knuckles turning white. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get as far away from that sound as possible. But the rules echoed in my head. Do not open the ice machine between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. The thumping continued, growing more frantic. It sounded less like knocking now and more like something was trying to claw its way out. I could hear a muffled voice, too distorted to make out words, but unmistakably filled with desperation. I clamped my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. "It's not real," I muttered to myself. "It's not real. It's not real. It's not real." After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the noise stopped. The sudden silence was almost as unnerving as the thumping had been. I slowly lowered my hands, my ears ringing in the quiet. My shirt was soaked with sweat. I checked my watch, 2:43 a.m. The ice machine would be active for another hour and 17 minutes. I needed a distraction. I turned to the ancient computer on the desk, hoping to lose myself in mindless internet browsing. But as I jiggled the mouse, I realized the screen wasn't just dark. It was cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading from the center. That's when I noticed the smear of something dark and sticky on the keyboard. I leaned closer, my curiosity overpowering my fear for a moment. It looked like blood, but older, congealed. I recoiled, my stomach churning. The phone rang, making me jump. I glanced at my watch, 3:33 a.m. exactly. With a trembling hand, I picked up the receiver. "Remember the rule," I thought. "Listen for 66 seconds. Do not speak." I pressed the phone to my ear. At first, there was only static. Then, slowly, I began to make out sounds beneath the white noise. Whispers, too faint to understand. The static faded, replaced by what sounded like footsteps on creaky floorboards. A door opening. Then a voice, crystal clear, as if the speaker was standing right next to me. "We've been waiting for you, Michael." I bit my tongue to keep from crying out. "How did they know my name?" The voice continued, low and menacing. "Did you really think you could escape? That you could just forget? Oh, Michael, you have so much to remember?" The line went dead. I slammed the phone down, my heart racing. What the hell was going on? How could they possibly know who I was? I ran to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, trying to calm down. When I looked up at the mirror, I froze. Written in the steam that shouldn't have been there in this ice-cold room, were 2 words. "Remember, Michael." I stumbled back to the desk, my mind reeling. This had to be some kind of elaborate prank, right? A way to haze the new guy? But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. There was something very, very wrong with this place. The rest of the night passed in a blur of terror and confusion. At 4:30 a.m., a man checked in, giving the name John Smith. I felt my blood run cold as I remembered the rule. With shaking hands, I gave him the key to room 113, careful to keep my eyes lowered. As he walked away, I caught a glimpse of his reflection in the window. Where his face should have been was just smooth, featureless skin. At 5:30 a.m., I heard a clunk from the vending machine. Curious despite my fear, I went to investigate. There, in the dispenser tray, was a small, ornate box. It looked ancient, covered in strange symbols I didn't recognize. I remembered the rule about not touching strange items with my bare hands. Using a pen, I carefully pushed the box into a plastic bag. As soon as it was sealed, the bag began to smoke, the plastic melting away. I dropped it with a yelp and ran back to the office. Finally, mercifully, 5:55 a.m. arrived. I all but sprinted to the supply closet, locking myself inside just as my watch ticked over to 5:55. For 4 minutes and 30 seconds, nothing happened. I started to relax. thinking maybe this rule was just paranoia. Then I heard it. A low, guttural growl right outside the door. The handle jiggled. Something heavy slammed against the wood, making the whole closet shake. I pressed myself into the corner, biting my fist to keep from screaming. The door bulged inward with each impact. I was certain it would burst open at any moment. I squeezed my eyes shut, silently begging my watch to move faster. And then, silence. I cracked one eye open. 6 a.m. exactly. With legs like jelly, I stumbled out of the closet. The hallway was empty. There was no sign of whatever had been trying to get in. At 6:45 a.m., I turned the neon sign back on. I've never been so happy to see the sun rising. The old man from last night walked in at 7 a.m. sharp. He looked me up and down, taking in my disheveled appearance and wild eyes. "You made it," he grunted, sounding almost impressed. "Wanna quit?" I opened my mouth to say yes, to tell him he could keep this hellish job. But then I thought of my empty bank account, of Pixel, who needed to eat, of my landlord, who was already talking about eviction. "No," I heard myself say. "I'll be back tonight." He nodded, unsurprised. "See you at 11 then." As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Good job, Michael. You're remembering. See you soon." I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. What had I gotten myself into? What did they mean I was remembering? And most importantly, how did they know who I was? Little did I know, this was only the beginning. The true horror of Whispering Pines Motel and my connection to it was yet to be revealed. Night 2. I spent the day in a fog, alternating between fitful naps and paranoid Google searches. I found nothing about Whispering Pines Motel online, which seemed impossible in this day and age. It was as if the place didn't exist. As night fell, I seriously considered not going back, but the thought of ending up on the street, of letting down Pixel, I couldn't do it. So at 10:30 p.m., I found myself driving back to Fayetteville, my stomach in knots. The old man was there again, reading the same newspaper as before. He barely looked up as I entered. "You're early," he grunted. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He folded his paper and fixed me with that unnerving stare. "Listen, boy, you made it through one night. That's more than most. But it gets worse. You sure you want to stay?" I swallowed hard. "I need the money," I said weakly. He shook his head. "Money ain't worth your soul, kid. But it's your choice." He stood up, grabbing his coat. "Oh, and one more thing. There's a new rule tonight. Check the drawer." With that, he left. I waited until I heard his car pull away before opening the desk drawer. Inside was a single slip of paper. Rule 8. If you see a little girl in a white dress, do not let her in. No matter what she says or does, do not open the door. Great, because things weren't creepy enough already. The night started much like the previous one. I turned off the sign at 11:15, settled in behind the desk, and tried not to jump at every little sound. Around 1 a.m., a truck pulled into the lot. An older man, probably in his 60s, came in looking exhausted. "Evening," he said, his voice gravelly. "Got a room?" I nodded, reaching for a key. "Just you tonight?" He grunted an affirmative. As I was checking him in, I noticed his hands. They were covered in what looked like grease or oil, but there was something off about it. It was too dark, almost black, and it seemed to shimmer slightly in the fluorescent light. I must have been staring because he suddenly pulled his hands back, shoving them in his pockets. "Had some car trouble on the way," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. I quickly finished the check-in process, handing him the key to room 109. As he turned to leave, I caught a whiff of something wrong. It wasn't body odor or the usual smells you might expect from a traveler. It was acrid, chemical, with an underlying sweetness that made my stomach turn. Once he was gone, I found myself obsessively washing my hands as if I had touched something contaminated. What was wrong with me? He was just a normal guest, right? The next few hours passed uneventfully. I dealt with the 3:33 a.m. phone call. More whispers, this time sounding like they were arguing about something, and carefully avoided looking at room 237, where I could swear I saw flashes of light under the door. At 4:17 a.m., it happened. I was idly flipping through an ancient magazine when I heard it. A soft tapping on the office door. I froze, the magazine slipping from my suddenly numb fingers. The tapping came again, more insistent this time. Slowly, I turned towards the door. There, peering through the glass, was a little girl in a white dress. My breath caught in my throat. She looked so real, so normal. Her dark hair was neatly braided and she clutched a worn teddy bear to her chest. But her eyes, they were wrong somehow. Too old, too knowing for a child's face. "Please," she called, her voice muffled through the glass. "Please let me in. I'm lost. I'm scared." I gripped the arms of my chair, my knuckles turning white. The rule echoed in my head. Do not let her in, no matter what she says or does. "I'm sorry," I called back, my voice shaking. "I can't open the door. It's against the rules." Her face crumpled, tears welling up in those unsettling eyes. "But I'm cold, and there's something out here, something bad. Please, mister, please help me." Every instinct screamed at me to help her. What kind of monster leaves a child out in the cold? But I remembered the old man's words. "Money ain't worth your soul, kid." "I'm so sorry," I said again, feeling like the worst person in the world. "I really can't. But I can call someone for you. The police, or..." Her expression changed in an instant. The tears vanished, replaced by a look of pure malevolence that chilled me to my core. When she spoke again, her voice was different, deeper, layered with other voices, old and full of hatred. "You'll regret this, Michael Brennan. It hissed. "You can't hide from what you've done. We'll make you remember. We'll make you pay." And then she was gone. One moment she was there, pressing against the glass, and the next she had vanished into thin air. I sat there, shaking, for what felt like hours. What did it mean? Make me remember? What had I done? The questions swirled in my mind, making me dizzy with fear and confusion. I don't remember turning the sign back on or the old man arriving. I just know that suddenly I was in my car, driving home in the early morning light. As I pulled into my apartment complex, my phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. 2 down, 5 to go. The past always catches up, Michael. I deleted the message with trembling fingers and stumbled up to my apartment. Pixel greeted me at the door, meowing for breakfast. The normality of it, my cat, my cluttered apartment, the morning sun streaming through the windows, felt surreal after the night I'd had. As I poured kibble into Pixel's bowl, a wave of dizziness washed over me. I gripped the counter, squeezing my eyes shut as images flashed through my mind. A stark white room, the smell of antiseptic, a man in a lab coat leaning over me, saying something about successful suppression of memories. I gasped, my eyes flying open. What the hell was that? A forgotten dream? Some kind of hallucination brought on by stress and lack of sleep. But deep down, I knew it was something more. something I had forgotten or been made to forget. I sank to the floor, my back against the cabinets. Pixel rubbed against my leg, purring, oblivious to my internal turmoil. I absent-mindedly stroked her fur, trying to make sense of everything. One thing was becoming clear. Whispering Pines Motel was more than just a creepy place with strange rules. It was connected to me somehow, to my past. And if I wanted answers, I would have to go back. God help me, I would have to go back. Night 3. I spent most of the day researching, though I wasn't sure what exactly I was looking for. I dug into the history of Fayetteville, looking for any mentions of Whispering Pines Motel or strange occurrences in the area. I found nothing concrete, just vague forum posts about people feeling weird vibes in that part of town. I also tried to dig into my own past, hoping to jog some memory of what I might have forgotten. But aside from that brief flash in my kitchen, nothing came. It was like there was a wall in my mind, blocking off a part of my life. As night fell, I felt the familiar dread settling in my stomach. But mixed with it now was a perverse sort of anticipation. I needed answers, and Whispering Pines seemed to be the key to getting them. I arrived early again, half hoping to catch the old man and demand some answers. But the office was empty when I got there. The only sign that anyone had been there was a new note in the drawer. Rule 9. At exactly 1:23 a.m., go to the vending machine and press B5 twice, then C3 once. Take whatever comes out and place it under your pillow in the back room. Do not look at it. I read the note 3 times, my unease growing with each pass. What kind of sick game was this? The first few hours of the shift passed without incident. No guests checked in, which was both a relief and oddly unsettling. The silence felt oppressive, like the whole motel was holding its breath, waiting for something. At 1:22 a.m., I stood in front of the vending machine, my heart pounding. As soon as my watch ticked over to 1:23, I pressed the buttons. B5, B5, C3. The machine whirred to life, but instead of the usual clunk of a snack falling, there was a soft whooshing sound, like air being released. Then something dropped into the dispenser tray. Following the rule, I kept my eyes averted as I reached in. My fingers closed around something small and cold. It felt like metal, with intricate engravings I could feel but didn't dare look at. I hurried to the back room, slipping the object under the pillow on the cot. As soon as I let go of it, I heard a faint whisper, too quiet to make out words. I practically ran back to the front desk, slamming the door behind me. The 3:33 a.m. phone call came right on schedule. This time, instead of whispers or footsteps, I heard what sounded like an old-fashioned film projector running. Then a man's voice, clinical and detached. Subject MB continues to resist memory suppression. Recommend increasing dosage and moving to more aggressive reconditioning techniques. The line went dead. I sat there, frozen, as the implications of what I'd heard sank in. MB Michael Brennan. They were talking about me. But what did it mean? Memory suppression? Reconditioning? It sounded like something out of a science fiction movie, not anything that could happen in real life. And yet, those flashes I'd been having, the gaps in my memory, the feeling that there was something important I'd forgotten. I was so lost in thought that I almost missed the sound of footsteps outside. I looked up just in time to see a figure walk past the office window. It was the man from last night, the one with the oil-stained hands. He was walking towards room 237. I knew I should ignore it. The rules were clear about not investigating that room. But my curiosity and growing desperation for answers overrode my caution. I slipped out of the office, following at a distance. The man stopped in front of room 237, pulling something from his pocket. It looked like a key, but not like any I'd seen before. It was long and oddly shaped, more like a mechanical tool than a normal room key. He inserted it into the lock, and I heard a series of clicks and whirs, like tumblers falling into place. The door swung open, and warm, golden light spilled out. I crept closer, trying to get a glimpse inside. What I saw made no sense. The room beyond the door was massive, far larger than should have been possible given the size of the motel. It looked like some kind of laboratory, with banks of computers and strange, pulsing machines lining the walls. In the center of the room was a chair, no, more like a throne, covered in wires and blinking lights, and strapped to that chair was me. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. It wasn't possible. I was here, outside the room. How could I also be in there? The man turned, finally noticing me. His face twisted into a snarl, and he started towards me. I ran, not stopping until I was back in the office, the door locked behind me. I sank to the floor, my breath coming in ragged gasps. What had I just seen? Was I going crazy? I went through the motions of the other rules, the supply closet at 5:55, turning the sign back on at 6:45. But I was on autopilot, my mind still trying to process what I'd witnessed. As I was leaving, the old man caught my arm. "You saw something you shouldn't have," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Be careful, boy. The walls between worlds are thin here, and some doors, once opened, can't be closed." I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning. When I got to my apartment, there was an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It showed me, strapped to that chair in room 237, my eyes wide and terrified. On the back, written in red ink, "The experiment isn't over, Michael. It's just beginning." I sank to the floor, the photo clutched in my trembling hands. What had I gotten myself into? And more importantly, how was I going to get out?